Hello everyone, my name is Brian. If you're new to this channel, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, this is obviously going to be something a little bit different. But what I want to talk to you about today is what makes Dirt Rally so special and why I'm slightly concerned about their next rallying game, which of course is going to be a WRC title. There are many aspects that go into making a great racing game. Everything from the visuals to the sound design to the physics of the cars, down to the handling model and the implementation of things like force feedback. But when it comes to making a rallying game in particular, you can nail all of that. But if your stage design is lacking, or even worse, boring, then, well, unfortunately, you are making a boring game. Richard Burns' Rally is widely considered to be one of, if not the greatest rallying game ever made. The fact that people are still playing and modding that game almost 20 years later is a true testament to that. It wasn't really until 2015, until Dirt Rally was released, that we had a game that could actually really truly challenge for its crown, and for me, it would eventually surpass it. While both games are almost universally praised for their handling model, what sets Dirt Rally apart and what truly elevates it over a game like Richard Burns' Rally or any of its other would be rivals comes down to one thing and one thing only, and that is its stage design, which, funnily enough, is almost a direct result of limitations. Let me take you back to 2015. Dirt Rally was announced and released in early access, still the only Codemasters title to ever do so, and you could point to multiple reasons for this. Rallying games, well, unfortunately, they just don't sell well. It is just an unfortunate truth. And so, primarily, they actually required the upfront funding for development. Along with this, they needed to be able to show higher ups within the company that there actually was demand for, well, for lack of a better term, a more hardcore rallying experience. There are elements of Dirt where you can tell it was made on a tight budget, and this is no more evident than in the number of stages in the game. On paper, there are 6 locations, each with 12 stages, and that all sounds pretty great. But as you start to play, you realize what's actually going on is that there are 2 large stages for each location. Those have then been cut in half to make shorter stages, and all of those can be run in reverse, which bumps the total up to 12. But suddenly, that kind of sounds a lot less impressive. However, because they knew they were facing into these limitations up front and they knew they wouldn't have the resources to make more locations, they spent their time just putting an absolutely meticulous level of detail into the stages they did have. The placement of every pole, every tree, every rock, every rut, every bump, every jump, it all feels incredibly considered. They didn't simply make 2 stages, cut it in half, and call it a day. There was care and thought putting into the state, making sure that the stages were as fun going forward as they were in reverse. There was care put into ensuring they remained fun and as exciting and as challenging to drive the 50th time through it as it was the first time through. To give an example of that, we'll use Priories in Wales. There is a turn about a third of the way into that stage. You approach on a 100-meter straight into a 4 left. There is nothing particularly special about this 4 left. As you approach it, you notice there is a rut on the right hand side, and that extends the whole way around the corner. On the exit of the corner, there is also bad camber, meaning that the road is tapered off facing down towards the ditch. Now, if you come down to that corner and you get your braking right and you get your turn in right, you're going to just sail through that corner and continue on with the rest of your rally. However, it is the time you come down to it and you don't get your braking spot on, or your turn in is a little bit late, and you actually end up missing the apex by about a foot or maybe 2 foot. And what is waiting for you is a very, very small bump. However, that bump is just big enough that if your front wheel rides over it, it's actually going to pitch you about 1 or 2 feet to the right. And that's going to basically push you out further into that bad camber. That bad camber is then going to help suck you into the ditch, and that ditch is going to help run you into a big pile of logs and end your rally. To give another example, we'll look at a stage in Monte Carlo, approach the Col de Torini. And I apologise because I know I'm butchering that. It is the very first corner you face into, and I believe the note for the corner is a 3 left cut bump. Now, if you come down to that corner and you take a small cut, you're actually still going to ride over that bump. And it has happened to me myself more times than I would care to admit, to be honest, but I've also seen it happen to multiple other people drive that stage. And what happens is always one of two things. You either flip the car completely on its side or you get pitched into the wall on the outside. Now, we'll take that same corner and we run it in reverse. And this time, as you approach it, it is now a 3 right tightens, and I believe the note is 3 right tightens, don't cut. And there's a very good reason for that don't cut, because they actually slightly move the placement of that bump. The bump is now no longer sitting in the middle of the corner. It has now been moved to what would be the exit of the corner, in tight to the wall. And so it is essentially sitting on what is the perfect line. Now, it's not enough of a bump on the way back, thankfully, to pitch you into the wall, but it's enough to cause you problems and probably also cost you a little bit of speed. There are jumps and straights in places like Finland and Australia and New Zealand, where if you go over on the left as opposed to going over a jump on the right, or you stick down the middle instead of keeping slightly right or left, you might have a much, much tougher time when you actually land. There's a level of nuance and detail in every single location in that game. And it is that minute level of detail that makes those stages, in my opinion, simply the best created in any rallying game ever. And that brings me to my concerns about WRC 23. Right off the bat, they are going to have to produce a minimum of 13 locations. That's more than Dirt Rally 1 and 2 combined. And that alone is enough to elicit some concern that quality may suffer as a result. On top of this, this is very, very likely going to be their biggest, most feature-rich rallying game in quite some time. I say this with zero knowledge, but with full confidence thanks to one thing: EA. Now, however you feel about EA buying Codemasters, and look, believe me, I was no fan either, one thing they are going to bring to the equation is money. And I believe this game is going to have a much higher budget than any of the Dirt games ever previously had. One highly requested feature has been multiplayer, and I believe there is a high probability we see the addition of multiplayer thanks to the backing of EA. That backing could also help see things like a larger car count in the base game, and I think there is at least a much higher probability that we see VR implementation than we would have if EA weren't in the equation. Now, more features are great, but every edition needs two things: time and people. And I just worry the amount of additions that are going to be going into the game is going to stretch the team. Will we see people taken off stage design because they need more people to help with multiplayer, that sort of thing? And I want to use KT's WRC games as an example. On paper, they are actually a much more complete package than Dirt. They have a more fleshed out career. They obviously have all the real drivers, the real cars. They have more cars. They have multiplayer. When it comes to the nuts and the bolts, the physics of the cars is pretty good. They have good sound design. They have a decent handling model. The reason, though, that those games are never talked about and have never really rivaled Dirt is because simply of uninteresting stage design. People will often comment that their handling is more forgiving, and it is, but it's because the stage is offering no real resistance to the player. I can give you another example. If you want to go on to my channel, there is a video of me going around Wales. I think it is actually the last video I've put up. And on that stage, you will see me ride over curbs at speed, and basically all that happens is that the screen takes a little bit of a judder. It might as well just have been a little bump. Now that wouldn't happen in Dirt Rally. If I hit a high curb at speed in Dirt Rally, I'm going to get punished for it. And that right there is the difference. That's what I mean by when I say the stage is offering no resistance to the player. Now, while I've been sharing my concerns in this video, I do want to point out that I remain largely optimistic and I am very excited both to see and hopefully play this game this year. I guess my real point in all of this is that I hope the team at Codemasters themselves recognize the value of their stage design. And I believe they do. I believe Dirt Rally 1 and 2 is evidence of that. But if I could give them any message, I would say don't sacrifice quality for quantity. I would very happily take 6 really good stages per location over 12 mediocre stages uh, per location. That quality is going to be the difference in producing either the next rallying game or the next truly great rallying game. Let me know how you're feeling about the game in the comments. Are you nervous? Are you excited? I love hearing all that stuff. But that's going to do it for me. So until next time, take care and good luck.